you constipated but don't want the solution to involve butt piss diarrhea? Then let me show you a Persian recipe that brings on poop like a welcomed guest. First, we are going to shred some cucumbers. You decide how much you want. You could either grate it or cut it. Get any yogurt of your choosing. I go with Greek yogurt because it's like a pillow for your booty hole. And it's higher in protein, so it keeps me full longer. There is no such thing as too much yogurt. You put however much your soul tells you to put. Mix it good. I didn't even put a whole lot of Greek yogurt in there. It's the moisture from the cucumber that makes it nice and creamy. You're going to put maybe a tablespoon of garlic salt, or if you're like me and don't measure, that much. Now you're going to throw in a handful of dill. Very important ingredient, mint leaves. Not for the constipation, but more for the culture. Fresh mint is perfectly fine too. I put that much in there, but there is no such thing as too much mint for this recipe. If you want it to be a little tangy, put some lemon juice in there. I'm putting a bottle cap in there. This mixture will gentle parent your intestines. If you don't want to eat it by itself, it goes really well with rice, in pita, in sandwiches. This is the capybara of foods. It gets along with everything. For me, I like to spread it inside tortilla, because I don't live near a Habibi market to get pita bread. I got Vallarta y El Superior. I don't like filming myself eating because it looks fake as hell, so you're just going to have to believe me that this is delicious. And be prepared to have the most comfortable poo of your life. Are you...
Get ready.
They say they need to ban the podcast equipment and take y'all mics away. And oftentimes when I listen, shit, I agree.
For real talk.
Hey, man, just because we know people don't mean that they know things. A lot of us was in the same classes with some of these folks. That don't mean they were passing these classes.
All the time.
It ain't the world leaving you behind, man. It's your line of thinking. You think the science stopped evolving because you stopped learning, and it don't work that way. I couldn't imagine voting for somebody who thinks identifying with me is identifying with a felon. That's crazy as hell. I'm Mr. Spann, and I'm approving these messages. This is the Mr. Spann Official Podcast. Let's go. Yo, what's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Mr. Spann Official Podcast. I'm your host, Mr. Spann. This is episode number 62 of the show. And, yo, man, just doing a little something different, man. I thought that was a very humorous fucking delivery of something, I guess, to, relieve you of your constipation, man. You're going to need something that's going to be like a pillow for your booty hole. And so I that looked like tzatziki sauce to me. Whatever it was she was making, looked like tzatziki sauce, the kind of stuff they put on like chicken shawarmas and stuff like that, which are very good, by the way, for those of you who have never had a chicken shawarma. Chicken shawarmas are very good. I love chicken shawarmas. They are a very tasty sandwich, and I fucks with them. I fucks with them heavy, man, real talk. And so, no, I just thought that her delivery, which is so deadpan, but also so fucking hilarious. And so I thought I enjoyed it, so I figured you guys would also enjoy it as well, man, real talk. But, yo, man, we are here, like I said, on episode 62. I've been working quite a bit this week, so it wasn't, I don't really have a shit ton of subjects or whatever. Actually, I think we're going to spend a lot of time on the few topics that I do have, though, because I feel like I need to speak to them. That's kind of why I do, right? But of course, before we do all of that, I got to remind you guys how to get in touch with us over here at the Mr. Spann Official Podcast and let your voice be heard. Go ahead and hit up the hotline at area code 313-288-0485. There's area code 313-288-0485. Leave us those voicemail messages, and of course, those voicemail messages will get played here and responded to here live on the show. And if you're watching us live here on YouTube and or Facebook, man, go ahead and chop it up with your man Spann live. Call that hotline number, area code 313-288-0485. Also, follow your man Spann on Threads and Instagram. My name on both of those platforms is Mr._Spann. So go ahead, follow me there. Chop it up with your man Spann throughout the week. I am also on Blue Sky. So if you want to chop it up with me on Blue Sky, my name on there is Mr. Spann. No underscore there, just Mr. Spann straight through .bsky.social. So if you're following, if you're on Blue Sky, I am over there as well. Leave us a 5-star review on iTunes and or Spotify. Those 5-star reviews are the ones that get read here live on the show. We really appreciate those of you who do that. Doesn't cost you a dime, just a couple minutes of your time to let everybody know why you're rocking with us over here, the Mr. Spann Official Podcast Network. The Spann Report Podcast Network and the Mr. Spann Official Podcast as well. But also leave us comments on our not only just our Spotify, because you do have the ability, if you're listening to us via Spotify, to leave comments. But also, if you're watching us here on YouTube, man, leave comments there as well. Those comments will be included as part of the listener feedback. So for those of you who have something to say about what I had to say on the show tonight, man, go ahead and let me know what it is you're thinking, and so we can have that dialogue that way, man, real talk. And that's pretty much it. That's pretty much it, man. Real talk. So I don't really have a whole lot of random thoughts, but I did have one random thought this week, man. And it was, I don't know why it just kind of popped in my head and shit, but it was like something I was thinking about this week, man. And like one of the things I always think about when someone passes away, and people might have something to say about a person who's passed away. You know, they might not even necessarily have something, you know, all that great to say about the person who has passed away. But you might be feeling a little something. You might got a memory or something you want to talk about. Yeah, you know, and that motherfucker died before he gave me my motherfucking $20. You know, that sort of shit. And sometimes, people will say stuff like, man, why don't y'all let them rest in peace? You know, they not here no more. Let them rest in peace. And I'm like, why would you say that? Because you say that as if this motherfucker is in the other room, like trying to take a nap or something, like he's sleeping. Like the nigga resting. No matter what I say, he getting all of the rest. He's getting more rest than the rest of us getting rest. You hear what I'm saying? So I just always thought that was strange, man, when people would say, let them rest in peace when you're talking about them. But it's like, yo, man, they it's not like they about to get their ass back up, man. Like that's not what's about to happen. So that was some random shit I was thinking about. I don't know why I was thinking about it, but I was kind of thinking about it. I think part of the reason why I was thinking about it was because of what's going on with the with that CEO that got shot and killed in New York and stuff like that, and people not necessarily having much sympathy for him, and a lot of people being in the social media posts being sarcastic about them being sorry about his death, and it's basically become a commentary on the American healthcare system and how fed up people are with the American healthcare system, especially when you start talking about how much money people are paying into healthcare only for the healthcare companies to try to like renege on paying any fucking monies out. You know what I'm saying? Like you pay all this money in case some shit happen, and then when some shit actually does happen, they try to run you through the ring on actually paying out. And so I think people at a certain point are just getting fed up with that sort of stuff. And I think that's part of what made me think of that though. Like, cause he's resting in peace now, but people have some very negative things to say, and you're gonna have those folks, well, let him rest in peace. It was like, hey man, it ain't like the nigga about to get back up. He ain't in the other room sleep. So you got that going on, man. Real talk. But like I said, I didn't have a whole lot of random thoughts this week, man. I was just the only one I had and shit, so we got that going on. So let's get into what we're gonna be talking about tonight, man. So our very first story, man, I thought this was a parody when I first saw the shit. I thought it was like this could not be true. I swear to God, I just knew my man he had to be trolling when he said this. But apparently, there's this MAGA husband. He and his wife are some MAGA influencers, and this motherfucker went on another YouTuber show, said into a microphone that making his wife come during sex is the equivalent of having gay sex. And I just couldn't. My mind broke, man. My mind broke.
That's the dumbest thing I've ever heard in my life. There's no wonder you get D's and everything.
Yeah, man. So we get this story here. This comes out of The Advocate. Says a MAGA husband says giving wife orgasms, not babies, is gay sex. So it says, are these MAGA supporters really dumb? News. A conservative man said that having sex with your wife with the end goal of orgasms and not procreation is classified as gay sex. Right-wing couple and MAGA influencers Isabella and Josiah Moody appeared on an episode of Luke Beasley's new weekly YouTube show, The Grudge. And a clip from their conversation is currently going viral on X, formerly Twitter, because of the absolute wild things the husband said about sex. Okay, and there's a video clip to this. So let me go ahead and pull this video clip up so you guys can watch right along with your man Spann. Let's see what this dude is talking about, because this sounds like crazy. All right, so let's do it. Here we go. Check.
Yeah, I mean, you're having sex and you can't reproduce. Like, the best part about having sex is reproduction. Seriously. Like, I don't value sex because of an orgasm. I value sex because I know that I am going to reproduce and have another baby. But
for you, part of you having a baby is you coming to that climax, right? You get to have the orgasm as a part of you creating the baby. You get it. Your wife, on the other hand, maybe not so much.
Orgasms aren't good enough. Kidding. Sorry.
Pain. I mean, like, seriously though, like, the best part of it's why as soon as we got together, Like, she's off birth control. As soon
We
as
got married, yeah.
as soon as we're together, it's like no birth control, nothing, because I'm not gonna have gay sex.
You're having sex with your wife. Here's the thing, right? I grew up with the crazy notion and idea that gay sex was when two people of the same sex decide to have sexual activities with each other. That's what I always thought gay sex was. It wasn't wearing clothes. It wasn't like what you ate or anything like that. It was the whole thing about being gay was the fact that you were attracted to and wanted to have sexual relations with someone of the same sex. Never in the history of never has anybody ever said some shit. I mean, like, just
Not never.
I ain't never thought of having sex with your wife as a man equated to you having gay sex if you didn't use that sex to procreate. If y'all were both having that sex to go ahead and bust those nuts, like, because both of y'all was like, hey man, I really need to go ahead and get this out. I need, hey baby, I want to make you feel good tonight. So when I get home tonight, baby, be ready, because we gonna have us a time tonight, right? That's the entire idea. This motherfucker said it's gay for you to have sex with your wife. He really got on a microphone and said that shit. Oh my God.
And like, gay sex is more than just like another man and a man. It's just like the idea of looking at sex as such a materialistic thing and just like, oh, well, like, we just have an orgasm and that's fun or whatever. No, like, dude, sex is about having children. It's about having babies.
You see the look on his wife's face right now, though. Like, as he's saying this shit, she just has this blank look on her face, because I'm sure she would probably like to have an orgasm. I'm sure she would probably like, wait, there's something out there for me that I could have, and this motherfucker is like denying it for me, like denying it to me. Who's to say, like, she's not stepping out, or who's to say that she doesn't have some toys or whatever that will fulfill her sexual desires, because apparently her husband seems to be uninterested in any of that shit. But he's really out in public telling the world that A, my priority isn't to make my wife come, but B, the unsaid thing could be, I'm not capable of making my wife come. And I don't think that's the thing he really wants to say, but it's written all over his face, man. It's kind of written all over his face.
Like, you pump yourself full of birth control and then you have sex with your wife, and like, there's no purpose there except just pleasure. That's the only purpose.
Should people
pleasure.
who are born like infertile have sex?
It depends. Listen, I am pro like people committing to celibacy for the rest of their life. I am pro like that. And if that was something that they couldn't.
But you know what's even more funny about this, though, right? Is that like this is an argument that a lot of conservatives use when they talk about whether or not gay people should even be allowed to be parents, right? Should they be allowed to adopt children, right? So for all of the talk about, we want, we're pro-life and everything, and we want these kids to grow up and have a life fulfilled, or have a life where they're well taken care of. But then those same people, when a gay couple decides they want to adopt a child, those same people will say, well, we don't want y'all to go out here and get these kids out of this orphanage, though. Not y'all, right? So there's always something. But even down to the idea of just engaging in the physical act. This man is engaging in a heterosexual act, and if his wife doesn't conceive, it's suddenly gay that his wife didn't conceive. So the fact that they both derived pleasure out of this encounter is like, I cannot abide by that. Like, what the fuck? So again, like I said, he's going to get something out of it, whether she gets something out of it or not. The entire thing is, his priority isn't to make sure that she actually enjoys the encounter. It's so much about, hey, I really just want you to have my babies. They only look at women as incubators for more children. That's it. That is all.
Couldn't have babies. I believe that they should have that choice there.
Well, they have a choice.
Yeah.
But I'm saying, is that what you believe is correct? Infertile people, no sex for you.
I think that it's crazy. Infertile people don't think. I don't see anybody really saying that, hey, I'm infertile, so I'm going to be celibate for the rest of my life. I'm not going to touch sex. I'm not going to have.
Why? Like you can't have like, so if the byproduct is all right, so I can't have kids, right? But this shit feels amazing. You know, I'm gonna do what I need to do to protect myself from disease and everything else. But the fact that I cannot have children means that I'm not going to be in a situation where one, someone needs to, someone needs to have an abortion. Two, if we do come to a situation where, you don't even come to the situation where you think pregnancy is even something that happens because, hey, we're infertile. We can't have kids. So we can just enjoy this, right? We can just enjoy this. And he thinks the fact that there are people out here who just enjoy being together in a sexual way is gay. Has to be the absolute dumbest shit I've ever heard in my life.
That's the dumbest thing I've ever heard in my life. No wonder you get D's and everything.
It's crazy shit, man.
Have sex.
You think it's crazy people don't say that?
Yeah.
Wow.
I think that would be very honorable.
No gay sex with women, guys.
Very true. Mm-hmm. I agree.
But he didn't even pick up on the sarcasm in that. These people are lost, bro. These people are fucking lost, man. So yeah, MAGA influencers though, right? Influencers. If these are the people that you're being influenced by, then damn, just
makes me sick, motherfucker, how far we done fell.
Makes me sick, man. Makes me sick. But we got that going on, man. Apparently, having sex with your wife is gay if you're not trying to have a baby. That is the absolute craziest shit I ever heard in my life. Real talk. But that happened this week. So we got that going on. Now, another thing that happened this week that like had the media like all up in the tizzy, man, had to do with the fact that Joe Biden went back on his word and decided that he would absolutely pardon his son Hunter from all of the prosecutions that Republicans have been bringing forth towards him over the course of the last 4 years. So. Yeah, man. So we get this story here. This comes out of, where did I get this story from? Okay, so I don't actually have the story. What I do have is a clip of Stephen A. Smith talking about this shit, right? And we're going to see a lot of Stephen A. Smith tonight, y'all. Unfortunately, when he's talking sports, I find him very entertaining. When he gets to talking politics, Stephen A. Smith isn't necessarily the most informed guy in the room. And it's unfortunate that because he is who he is, and again, when we start talking about influencers and not vetting their information and stuff like that, unfortunately, Stephen A. Smith falls into that category. And so I'm gonna pull this video up so you guys can watch right along with me. But Stephen A. Smith is but one voice that was in the media ecosphere and in the like political sphere, who all of them had a whole lot of shit to say about Joe Biden pardoning his son. So I'm gonna pull this up so you guys can watch right along with your man Spann. Hold on a second while I pull this up, and let's see what the fuck Stephen A. Smith has to say about Joe Biden pardoning his son from all of the charges. So let's see what's going on here.
We're going to get started in the nation's capital, where President Joe Biden reversed course when it comes to his son, Hunter Biden. The president issued a full and unconditional pardon for Hunter, who faced sentencing this month for federal tax and gun convictions. The pardon means Hunter Biden won't be sentenced for his crimes, and it also eliminates any chance that he'll be sent to prison. In fact, the pardon explicitly grants clemency for the tax and gun offenses from his existing cases, plus any potential federal crimes that Hunter Biden may have committed dating as far back from January 1st, 2014 through December 1st, 2024, which was just a day ago.
Now, I understand the reason why the pardon goes back that far is because Republicans have been trying to tie him to crimes going back that far. Okay. And the only reason why Republicans had even been trying to go after Hunter Biden was because they were trying to sully Joe Biden's presidential chances, even dating all the way back to when Donald Trump was president the first time. The reason why Donald Trump got impeached the first time was because he was trying to gin up dirt and get the Ukrainians to gin up dirt and create a phony investigation or a sham investigation into the Bidens, because he knew that Joe Biden represented the biggest risk to his presidency back in 2020, right? So he was trying to preemptively get them up out of the paint because he knew that Joe Biden represented a threat to his presidency. Okay. And Republicans in the House and in the Senate have been going back and forth when it comes to like creating crimes against Hunter Biden and making sure that we all know that Hunter Biden was a criminal. Man, never mind the fact that Hunter Biden isn't a government official, but they were trying to tie his alleged crimes to Joe Biden. And if they could connect his crimes to Joe Biden, then that would make Joe Biden part of a criminal conspiracy. Ironically enough, we've seen Donald Trump commit crimes in our fucking faces. And somehow, some way, Republicans seem to turn a blind eye to that. But let's go. I'm going to let them continue, though.
The time frame is specific because it covers Hunter's work overseas with Ukraine, China, and other foreign business dealings, okay? Here's a part of President Biden's statement in regards to the move. Quote, "Today, I signed a pardon for my son, Hunter. From the day I took office, I said I would not interfere with the Justice Department's decision making, and I kept my word, even as I have watched my son being selectively and unfairly prosecuted.
He was.
Without aggravating factors like use in a crime, multiple purchases, or buying a weapon as a straw purchaser, people are almost never brought to trial on felony charges solely for how they filled out a gun form. Those who were late paying their taxes because of serious addictions, but paid them back subsequently with interest and penalties, are typically given non-criminal resolutions. It is clear that Hunter was treated differently. No reasonable person who looks at the facts of Hunter's cases can reach any other conclusion than Hunter was singled out only because he is my son, and that is wrong. There has been an effort to break Hunter, who has been 5.5 years sober, even in the face of unrelenting attacks and selective prosecution. In trying to break Hunter, they've tried to break me, and there's no reason to believe it will stop here. Enough is enough."
Now, here's the rub, right? As Republicans and even some Democrats come out and are upset about what Joe Biden did for his son, none of them can refute anything he just said. None of them can refute the facts behind what he just said, because this is one of those things where we know that the prosecution of Hunter Biden had everything to do with their attempt to try to nullify Joe Biden's presidency. Again, Hunter Biden was not a part of the Biden administration. Hunter Biden was a private citizen, a private person, when they were coming after him with these congressional investigations, because they were trying to tie whatever he was possibly involved in with his father. So we know without equivocation that the only reason this happened is because Joe Biden was his father. We know this. Now, people are up in arms about Joe Biden saying that he wouldn't pardon his son, that's not something he would do. I'm gonna let this video play a little bit more, and then we're gonna get into why I don't necessarily mind what Joe Biden did.
End quote. Now, Biden's opponents, which include President-elect Donald Trump, have repeatedly said Hunter should be prosecuted for his activities in Ukraine and elsewhere.
Not the fucking felon, dude. Like, we got a 34-time convicted felon talking shit about who else should be prosecuted on some shit. Nigga, you wait a minute. You got crimes too. You ain't the strongest voice, man. You should probably shut the fuck up. You ain't the strongest voice on this.
Respectfully, to the President of the United States, specifically as it pertains to that statement, you're full of it. I'm going to look right here over the national airwaves and look the President of the United States in the face and saying you're full of it. Not because you let your son off. Any decent father would do that.
No shit. No shit. And this is why I think it's crazy why so many people were coming at Joe Biden's neck for what he did. Because despite the fact that he kept telling people that he wasn't going to step in and pardon his son, I think the calculus behind that statement had always been contingent upon the results of the election. Okay? If Joe Biden had continued to be president of the United States, I think his Justice Department wouldn't be as litigious against his son and seek the harshest penalties against his son had he still been president. If Kamala Harris had won the presidency of the United States, and now the DOJ is answering to her. I don't think that Kamala Harris's DOJ will be as litigious against Hunter Biden and seek the harshest penalties against him, right? But when Donald Trump wins the presidency and you have him appointing people who have, for all intents and purposes, created a hit list of the people that they want to kind of come after in the United States government and hit them with criminal charges, he appoints someone, or he at least nominates someone like Kash Patel, who has a hit list of people that he wants to prosecute for those who would have the audacity, the temerity, and the unmitigated gall to actually pursue charges against Donald Trump, to actually hold Donald Trump to account, where he's looking to prosecute them and use the government's legal justice system against those folks. You think that same dude wasn't going to try to like throw the book at Joe Biden's son? You think you don't think that would happen? I'm gonna be honest. I'm gonna tell y'all this right now. Had Joe Biden not pardoned his son, I would have less respect for him as a man to allow his son to be left to the mercy of these ravenous wolves who have made it their mission to come after him, not only politically but legally as well. So Stephen A. Smith and all of the Democrats, like it's been a bunch of Democrats talking about how Joe Biden doing this action will do nothing but embolden Trump. And it's as if people haven't been paying attention to Donald Trump for the last 9 years. Donald Trump didn't have to wait for Joe Biden to decide whether or not he was going to pardon his son. Donald Trump was already going to do what the fuck Donald Trump was going to do, whether Joe Biden did this or not. Donald Trump is out here. He campaigned on pardoning the people who stormed the fucking Capitol, left feces and all sorts of stuff all over the walls and stuff, walking around the Capitol with a goddamn Confederate flag, had the people of the Capitol, the House of Representatives and the Senate look like running to like save their lives, had a gallows set up outside of the Capitol talking to hang his fucking vice president. This shit happened in broad daylight in front of everybody, in front of the fucking world. Donald Trump is talking about pardoning those people. And you think that because Joe Biden decided that he was not going to leave his son out on the lurch with those people, that somehow Joe Biden is full of it. Man, get the fuck out of here. Fuck out of here. That's just...
Oh man, hey.
That's the dumbest shit ever. Because I'm going to tell you this right now. If you got love for your kids, there's no way in hell you're going to leave them out to the wolves on people who mean to do your children harm. So to say that he's full of it, it's like, nah, he ain't full of it. The other part about it is this. People keep talking about Joe Biden lied to him. Like, nah, Joe Biden didn't lie to you. He changed his fucking mind. The circumstances are different now. There's a motherfucker out here who means my family harm. What do I look like leaving my family out here to be done wrong by to somebody who's advertised and ran politically on the fact that they wanted to do harm to my family? Fuck out of here. The fuck out of here, man. So, yeah, like, but I'm going to let Steven talk some more because, yeah, he ain't, like I said, he ain't the brightest motherfucker when it comes to politics, but okay.
Never mind the business dealings that was going on in Ukraine and China and other places. While you were vice president under the Obama administration, I'm not talking about that. This is not a complaint about Hunter Biden getting off. I said weeks ago, you damn right you should let him off. He's your son.
So what the fuck are we even talking about right now?
And he's a recovering addict.
What are we talking about right now?
And he's battled those demons for years. And the fact that you let your son off, I totally understand. Donald Trump would have let his son off. Anybody would have.
So what are we talking about?
Or at least most people.
What are we talking about?
I understand that. That's not the issue, sir. The issue, and why I say you're full of it, is because of the excuse you gave. A simple statement. That's my son. I have the power to pardon him, to grant him clemency, whatever. That's what I'm doing. Y'all kick rocks. That'd have been good enough for me. That's your son. That's your son. That's your flesh and blood. That's your child. And as you pointed out, he's battled a lot of demons. He's gone through a lot. I get it.
Why this nigga hollering though?
But what's all of that other stuff you said about? You highlighting the transgressions and talking about how, oh my goodness, if it were anybody else, it would not have been considered or classified as a felony. If it was somebody else, they would have got off. Well, you ain't somebody else. You were the vice president.
Again, though, they were trying to tie whatever crimes that they thought Hunter Biden committed to him as vice president. That is the entire reason why Donald Trump got impeached the first fucking time, right? He tried to come up with a sham investigation in Ukraine to investigate Hunter Biden. That is the entire reason why that fucker got impeached the first time. The very first president ever in history to be impeached, not once, but fucking twice. And the first impeachment was him trying to create a sham investigation in a foreign land so that they can investigate a political rival of his. It's been political from the very jump. So he's not full of it. Yeah, he would have pardoned his son, especially considering who's going to be in control of the Justice Department going forward.
And obviously, considering the crimes that he was being accused of, I understand the gun charge, I understand tax charges, but the things that they were investigating in terms of his dealings with Ukraine, his dealings with China, and whatever purported money was funneled to the Biden family, considering all of those things, those are valid things that warrant an investigation. And again,
and here's what's wild though, Stephen A. Is that they've been investigating this for the last 4 years. And yet you have not seen them come up with any links to Joe Biden and Hunter Biden and any monies being funneled and all this other shit. You haven't seen that. They were never able to produce that. After 4 years of investigating, they were never able to produce that. The entire investigation was about politics, man. It was never about actually being able to find a criminal link. It was all about selling in the name. And this isn't the first time it's happened. They did the exact same thing to Hillary Clinton in regards to Benghazi. And then you had Republican politicians going on. Kevin McCarthy, by the way, who went on to become the U.S. House of Representatives Speaker of the House, going on Fox News talking about, yeah, we came up with the Benghazi investigation. And that was in large part due to weakening Hillary Clinton's run for the presidency. He went on Fox News to brag about. That's the entire reason why they even brought the investigation up in the first fucking place. That's the one thing about, like, Republicans will get out here and tell you that, yeah, we full of shit. And here's why we full of shit. But for whatever reason, people aren't believing them when they coming out here telling you they full of shit. So much so that Stephen A. Smith, with the popularity that Stephen A. Smith has, with the large audience that Stephen A. Smith has, gets on the goddamn podcast and starts talking about investigations into the Biden family that is largely done in bad faith on a private citizen who isn't involved in the government whatsoever, and basically holds the water for this, or like just holds the water for this bad faith investigation, and tries to act as though Joe Biden is wrong because he knows his son could be left in the lurches of people who mean nothing but his family harm. Now, you say if he just came out and said that, you know, his son, it being his son, that'd have been enough for you. But it could also be another thing. Two things can be true at the same time. Doesn't have to just be the one thing. It could be this other thing too. And Joe Biden understands not only is it this thing, but it's that other thing. It's also that other thing.
if you don't want it investigated and you want to let him off, President Biden, no problem. Just say that. That's my son. That's my son. That ain't what you said. You tried to highlight how innocent he is. Damn near called him a paragon of virtue. But what did you do to Donald Trump? See,
Now, are we about to call Donald Trump a victim out here? Are we about to call the dude who went in front of a crowd of people and said, I could shoot somebody on Fifth Avenue and I wouldn't lose any voters? Are we about to make that guy a victim? Is that what we're about to do, Stephen A? Is that what we're about to do? We're about to make the dude who said, I can shoot somebody on Fifth Avenue and I wouldn't lose any voters. And you know what? Unfortunately, he damn sure was right. Because now we got niggas like you with large platforms making excuses for the crimes that we all saw him commit in front of our fucking face and acting as though he doesn't deserve the scrutiny that he has so rightly earned, so to speak. And he was a government official. He was the government official. The one. And somehow, are you really about to make the argument that Donald Trump is a fucking victim here? Is that what we're doing, Stephen A? Is that what the fuck we doing? Come on, man.
we want to sit up here and everybody was afraid to talk about it leading up to the election. Or even when we were willing to talk about it, we had to dance the dance. We had to go around, up the block, around the damn corner, come right back around and vaguely get into stuff. We had to point out the 34 felony convictions. We had to talk about the 2 impeachments. We had to talk about the abundance of allegations that took place, including an election fall and citing an insurrection and all of this other stuff. We had to talk about all of that.
Because it was the truth. And we also saw it happen. The reason why we talked about it, because it was the truth and we saw it happen. Everything they're accusing Hunter Biden of, mostly misdemeanor charges. We didn't see that. And on top of that, Hunter Biden isn't a government official. He wasn't the government official. So to try to put them things on the same plane, come on, bro, what the fuck are you doing? What are you doing right now?
But conveniently, it was coming down the pike like a damn tsunami when you knew you were going to have to run against them. You didn't talk about this then. A matter of fact, you specifically said you wouldn't pardon your son.
He absolutely said that.
Before the election. You're announcing it now that we know that Donald Trump is coming in and about to be sworn in as the 47th president. You were intending to do this all along, which again is no problem. But
here's the thing, though. We don't know that he was intending to do this all along, right? That's the part that we do not fucking know. I think that the pardon that the pardon that Joe Biden gave his son was contingent upon what the results of the elections were. That's what I think it was. And I think that once Joe Biden recognized that the circumstances had changed regarding not only the election, but also who his son is going to be faced up against when it comes to prison time or anything of that nature. Hey, these people have been coming after my family because I was an opponent of Donald Trump's. And now Donald Trump is coming after my family. I'm not leaving my son out there like that, with that dude in control of the Justice Department. We don't know that Joe Biden would have intervened. I think that he probably changed his mind. You know, it's a wild thing, right? People tend to think, when people try to hold you to a certain position, you might have had a very strong position on something at some point in your life, right? And the reason why you held on to that strong position is because, you know, of the information that was available to you at the time, that position that you held seemed to make the most sense to you, right? And then suddenly circumstances change, or better yet, not even so much circumstances change, but your understanding of the facts of the situation may change. You may come into some new information like, oh shit, I didn't know this. And because I didn't know this, that affects how I look at this particular situation. I got some new information. And so because I have some new information, you know what smart people do when they get new information? Oftentimes, depending on what that information is, they change their mind on the subject. We have been conditioned, unfortunately, to think that like you got to hold on to a certain position. You got to hold on to that no matter what. Despite the fact that you may have come into some new information that could alter the way that you look at a certain subject or a certain thing that's going on. Joe Biden was faced with a new situation. He probably was always privy to the possibility of the situation changing. But that doesn't mean that Joe Biden didn't mean what he said before. That doesn't mean that. It just means that the situation has changed. And so because the situation has changed, his calculus and his thoughts on what that situation means have also changed. He didn't lie to people. He probably meant it. Shit, it's been plenty times, man, in my life where I had a very strong position on something and somebody presented me with some new information. Like, oh shit, I didn't know that. And because I didn't know that, that's why I held the previous position. But because I have this new information, oh, well, that's different. And so my situation, because I am not like tied to a certain thing. Like, hey, I will never knock anybody for coming into a new understanding once they get new information. And I think that's what happened with Joe Biden in this situation. Hey, man, the situation has changed. My son is going to be at the mercy of people who mean my family harm. And that is the only thing that they're out for, is causing my family harm. Meanwhile, you got loud mouths like Stephen A. Smith calling the president of the United States right now, full of it, because situations have changed to where he might have changed his mind because he came into some new information. Once Donald Trump came out here and said Kash Patel would be his FBI director.
It doesn't make you any less full of it.
Once he came out with that, I think, Biden was like, hey, nah, I'm not leaving my son out here with these motherfuckers, man. What the fuck I look like? And like I said before, if Joe Biden had not pardoned his son, I'd have lost a lot of respect for him, especially considering these circumstances.
Because when you look at Donald Trump and how the Democrats went after him, you do understand that the Democrats are no longer in a position to say anything, right?
I mean, let's be frank, though. The Democrats came after him in very legitimate ways. And they didn't go after his kids. They went after him. And for the things that he did. They went after him because he did refuse to return classified documents that did not belong to him while he was keeping that shit in his bathroom in his house. They did come after him for trying to overturn an election in Washington, D.C., where you had thousands of fucking MAGA supporters storming the goddamn Capitol. Yeah, they came after him for that. Yeah, they did come after him in Georgia because he tried to browbeat a Republican Secretary of State to change 11,780 votes and get those to become Republican votes so that he wouldn't lose the motherfucking election in Georgia. It wasn't as if those were pointless prosecutions. All those prosecutions had legitimacy. And all of them had to do with crimes that he committed in front of us. We heard the tapes even. So to compare these two, Stephen A., the fuck are you doing? The fuck are you doing right now to try to even equate the two? Because they're not equitable. They're not equitable. We got a comment here. Let me pull this comment up here. Stargate is in the chat room. Stargate says that Stephen is in love with the sound of his own voice. Well, that much is apparent. We all know that. As much as we see Stephen A. on ESPN and everything else, he's all over NBA basketball coverage and fucking he's got his own First Take show and stuff like that. And I'm hearing that he may become even more richer. I think they talking about paying this man $20 million a year to become, he's already the face of ESPN. But, again, I find him entertaining when it comes to sports. When he gets on this arena, though, and he doesn't even do the due diligence, that's where I'm like, hey, like, I'm not the one to tell you to stick to sports. But when you don't know what the fuck you talking about, I'm more inclined to tell you, hey man, maybe that's what you should probably do. Because right now you don't know what the fuck you're talking about. You say, or better yet, you sound very eager and willing to carry Republican talking points. And we're gonna get a little bit into that a little later. All right. But yeah, Stargate says that, and they also say to shut up and dribble. I'm not gonna tell him that because he wasn't good at that either. That's why he's on. That's why he's talking and he's not playing. But we got that going on. But yeah, here we go. We got some more of this. Go let this play.
You can talk till the cows come home. You whistling into the wind. Nobody wants to hear what you have to say right now. I'm not talking about you. I'm talking about your party. Because when you pardon your son, going back on your word, telling the American people there was no way that you were going to pardon him when everybody and their grandmama knew you were lying but didn't hold you accountable for it. And now you've confirmed what people believe, that you were probably going to be lying about that very thing that you said you wouldn't do for your son.
Again, why is he lying? How do you figure he was lying? He didn't lie. Circumstances change. And when circumstances change, people change their minds. But to suggest that this man was just lying about it, that's the extra step that you took. Right? I don't believe that Joe Biden would have pardoned his son if Joe Biden was able to complete out his campaign and he ran for president, he was able to complete out running for president and he got reelected. I don't think that Joe Biden pardons his son. I don't think that Kamala Harris, if she runs and she wins, that she pardons Hunter Biden either. It's the fact that Donald Trump won that prompted this motion. I think that is the calculus that they took. If he wins, then shit changes. But to suggest that he was lying to folks, I don't think that's what it was. I think he changed his mind. Because I think, more than anything, I think Joe Biden really and sincerely thought that he could still win that election. Y'all remember what it was. For those of you who have been listening to me for any length of time, man, y'all remember how upset I was that they really pushed this motherfucker out. I was upset because the media, not only just the media, but there were some people in the Democratic Party, Nancy Pelosi being one. There was some other prominent Democrats who were talking about, hey, we need to move him out and get somebody else in here. Maybe we need to have a primary and all this other shit. And my whole thing back then was, this was an opportunity for them, or at least they thought that was an opportunity for them to push Kamala Harris to the wayside. Kamala Harris was next up. And she deserved that shot. And so for the Democratic Party at that time, Democratic elites and whatever else, for those people to act as though she hadn't earned that spot. She's the vice president of the United States. She's number 2. No way in hell are y'all going to bypass the vice president, have this fucking primary and all this other shit that y'all swore up and down that the Democratic Party needed and thought that was going to come together in enough time to run for president come November. And even when she did run with the race that Kamala Harris did run, like, I mean, shit, even right now, Donald Trump only won 1.4% more votes than she did. And she was only running for president for 110 days. He doesn't have this massive mandate that the Republicans would like people to believe. You don't have that. Excuse me. They only have a 3-seat majority in the House of Representatives. I think they only have a 3-seat majority in the Senate. It's not a mandate. He barely fucking won despite, and most of that was structural because of how many seats Democrats had to defend at the time. So the idea that Democrats lost, like majorly lost. Yeah, we don't have control of any house, in any branch of the government right now. The Supreme Court is all Republicans at this moment, outside of three justices. The House of Representatives and the Senate also has gone to the Republicans for the time being. The presidency is going to the Republicans, right? So they have everything. And I know it feels overwhelming when you look at it that way, but you also have to look at how close those margins are in the House of Representatives and the Senate. And you also have to look at how close the amount of votes were when it came to Kamala Harris and Donald Trump, despite the fact that she was only running for 110 days. You got to look at that shit. So Stephen A. Smith is going on and on and on about Joe Biden being full of it, when ultimately what I think Joe Biden was confronting was the fact that, listen, had I run and had I won, I would not have pardoned my son. If my vice president had won this election, she wouldn't have pardoned my son. But I am not about to leave my son at the mercy of a motherfucker who hates me and my family. I'm not about to do that. And for any Democrat who thinks that we lose a moral high ground to a motherfucker who has no morals, and you think that this emboldens Donald Trump, no, Donald Trump was going to do what Donald Trump was going to do no matter what the fuck Joe Biden decided to do when it came to his son. Y'all forget we were talking about y'all forget there were times where people were openly musing as to whether or not Donald Trump was going to try to pardon himself from crimes he committed while being president, before the Supreme Court gave him immunity for crimes, if he can allege that he did this in his official capacity as president. Right? Are we forgetting this? Are we forgetting this? Donald Trump didn't need Joe Biden to do a motherfucking thing to justify what the shit that he was going to do, because he's been running on telling us some of the fucked up shit he's going to do. So the idea of that has always been dumb as shit to your boy, right? Now, enough of this part when it comes to Joe Biden pardoning his son. Because again, we all knew that he was going to do that shit. Especially when we found out who won the election. It was clear. If he'd have left his son out there like that, we'd have lost respect for him. But here's where I really want to tell Stephen A. Smith to, you know what?
You need to shut the fuck up when grown folks is talking.
This is where I really want to tell Stephen A. Smith to shut the fuck up. Okay? And so I'm going to pull this particular video up, because man, listen, at this particular moment, at this particular time, when it comes to Stephen A. Smith, I want y'all to sit back. I want y'all to listen, because
I don't want y'all to miss that I'm about to break it down for this bitch.
And I mean that. I mean that. So the next video that we have is Stephen A. Smith talking about black conservatives being treated unfairly. Nigga! So not only do we have Stephen A. Smith bitching about Joe Biden pardoning his son, but now we got to talk about black conservatives being treated unfairly. And we talked about this last week. Because one of the things I could not understand is that, it's not just black conservatives, but conservatives en masse feel as though they're being mistreated after they won the fucking presidency. They got the presidency, they got the House of Representatives, they have the Senate, they have the Supreme Court. They are in complete control of the fucking government right now. And yet they cannot understand why people who did not vote and did not support the same shit that they are supporting are not trying to fuck with them, don't want any parts of them, right? And so Stephen A. Smith got on his platform to admonish people for treating black conservatives a little bit differently. And I'm going to say this here, man. Because a few weeks ago, man, I went in on the black men who voted for Donald Trump. And I know there's a contingent of folk who think that like, yo, man, like black men showed up. You know, we saw a lot. We see a lot of that shit on social media. Black men showed up. You know, we was the second most votes for the for Kamala Harris behind black women. But I'm gonna be honest with y'all, man. Way too many brothers voted for Donald Trump. The fact that 23% of black men voted for Donald Trump, to me, still represents a motherfucking problem. And you are not going to convince me that that's not a problem. And the other part I think like really colors the way that I look at this particular situation is because I know too many. I know personally too many niggas who voted against their own interest. Right? One of the dudes who's a pallbearer at my mother's funeral was a Trump supporter. One of the dudes that used to host a show with me here on the Spann Report Podcast Network turned out to be a Trump supporter. These are people I've known since I was a teenager. These are people I had love for. Still got love for them. But you got to be over there. I can't fuck with you. I can't fuck with you if that's what you want. So to me, when I hear people talking about, you know, black men showed up. Yeah, black men showed up. Not enough of us showed up. Not enough of us showed up. And because I know too many brothers who did vote the other way, knowing what I know politically, that 23% will never sit right with me. Never sit right with me. Right? But Stephen A. Smith went on his podcast, went and talked to his vast audience and talked about how black conservatives are being treated unfairly in America. So again, like I always do, man, I'm gonna show y'all what the fuck I'm talking about. We're gonna pull this video up so you guys can watch right along with your man Spann, and we're gonna do this, man. We're gonna essentially.
So listen close, cause I don't want y'all to miss that I'm about to break it down for this bitch.
This is what we're about to do. Okay, so let me pull this up so you guys can watch right along with me. Let me add this to the screen here. Let's see what the fuck this nigga's talking about now.
Let me get back to the issue, however, of black conservatives. And I've touched on this subject on many, many occasions, and I'm going to touch on it now, but never before have I touched on this subject the way that I'm going to right now. There's a lot of times it could be a Candace Owens. It could be a Larry Elder. To a lesser degree, it could be a Byron Donald.
Basically, he naming all of the.
I remember Armstrong Williams. He's been out there for many, many years. I've known him for many, many years. Even to a lesser degree, somebody like Sage Steele, who used to work at ESPN and now, you know, helped the Trump campaign. And who knows, for all we know, I don't think she's interested in it, but who knows? She might end up being press secretary one day. I don't know. Whatever it is, I hope she does well. I wish her well. Sage and I got along.
Sage and you got along. But apparently Sage didn't get along with a lot of the black women who were coming through ESPN. Ironically enough, you seem to be oblivious to that. Some of those black women who came forward, not just Jamel Hill, but people like Carrie Champion came out to talk about how as much as they looked up to Sage Steele, what she meant and what she did to them while they were also colleagues at ESPN. The fact that you're coming out, I always got along with Sage Steele. Yeah, but what about the black women who came along, who had to work around her also? What were their experiences, Stephen A.? Why ain't you saying nothing about that?
Let me say this. Over the years, we've seen a level of vitriol emanating from black conservatives to a point where people who are not conservative vilified them because of it.
You mean on people that would tell us we on the Democratic plantation, those people? Is those the people you trying to take up for right now? The ones who came out and said, man, y'all on the Democratic plantation. Y'all need to get up off that damn plantation. Those the motherfuckers you taking up for right now? Because they done said some shit to the rest of us. Because again, like I told y'all before, last week, as a matter of fact, we talked about this. Many Republicans, black conservatives in particular, seem to think that they are above and apart the rest of the black community. That is the attitude that many of them have taken, that they are above and apart from the rest of the black community. And in doing so, they excoriate black people for not joining them on that side of the aisle, despite the fact that I think in many ways that they don't necessarily want black people to join them on that side of the aisle because that means less money for them. Let's keep it a buck. Many of them know that they get paid quite handsomely to be the voices and the faces of white supremacy in blackface. They don't want many of us over there. They don't want to like black people to become conservative en masse because that means less money for them. That means less money for them. So they will say what they need to say because they know the money is good over there. When it comes to when white folks can have a black face that they can point to say, hey, listen, you can't call me racist. Candace Owens agrees with me. You can't call me racist. Officer Tatum agrees with me. You can't call me racist. Denard Parrish Denard agrees with me. You can't call me racist. The Hodge twins agree with me. They use these niggas as tokens. And you want us to feel bad because these niggas made a decision to go over there and be a token against their own community. Fuck out of here, dog. Fuck out of here.
I was never down with that.
Whatever, nigga.
I'm a registered independent who primarily votes Democrat. There have been several occasions I've been tempted to vote Republican, to vote conservative. Hell, some of the times I regretted I didn't. And who knows what the future holds with me with some of the nonsense that I saw from the left, particularly leading up to this election with woke and cancel culture and all of that stuff. But that's a different story for another day.
So hold on. You mean to tell me you are offended by woke? Cancel culture? You're offended by that? What woke are you talking about, Stephen A? Which woke are you talking about? Are you talking about the woke where black people are talking about, hey, we need to be aware of the systemic and racial issues that are happening in the country, and so that when these things happen, we need to make not only do we need to be aware, we need to make the nation aware of these things happening. Or are you leaning into the idea that woke is just, hey, anything that white folks don't like is woke. Anything that white men don't like is woke. So, hey, if they decide in a comic book to change the race of a character, these are all made up people, by the way. They're all made up. But if they decide they're going to race swap a character into a person of color, that's woke. We can't have that. When it comes to whether or not we should be conscious of the fact that black people have been mistreated in America in a disproportionate. History tells us that. Are you against that, Stephen A? Because basically what the right has determined what woke is to mean that anything that isn't white and male tends to be woke. They've tried to take woke away from its original meaning. Right? Cancel culture. Hey, this person has said some things, has done some things that by and large would, result in some consequences being meted out. Suddenly, we don't want consequences meted out for those things, though. Y'all call that cancel culture. Many of these people haven't been canceled. They've been postponed, right? They've been postponed, but they don't actually go any fucking where. They come back a little while later. And they talk about how they were canceled and all these other things. Also, the idea of cancellation. Understand, you are not entitled to people's support. People have the right to be like, hey, this is what you believe in. This is what you represent. I don't have to spend any money with you anymore. I'm cool on you. I'm done with that. If that's what you represent, because that's against what I believe in. The right does it all the time. Do we call it cancel culture when the right does it? Did we call it cancel culture when when Donald Trump himself called the NFL, or better yet, he called Colin Kaepernick and all of the guys who were kneeling for racial justice at NFL games, when he said somebody should tell them sons of bitches they fired right now? And all those right-wing people were saying that they were going to stop watching NFL games behind that. That was cancel culture too, but we didn't call it that for them. Because they didn't believe that represented their values. Is it only cancel culture when it happens on the left? Is that what cancel culture is? It only cancel culture happens on the left. This is the asymmetry of the political landscape that we're dealing with right now. You got this highly paid. I would even go so far as to say, I think Stephen A. Smith is a smart dude. Just not about the politics. I don't think he's smart about the politics.
Here's the point that I want to make. While finding myself wishing that the inordinate amount of black conservatives that have been out there and are still out there will sort of dial back their vitriolic responses to the venom that's been thrown in their direction, I've rarely blamed them.
Okay, while he's really blaming them, I got to run to the bathroom. I'll be right back. Give me a second, y'all. Be right back. All right, we made quick work of that, but let's get back to it. Here we go.
Because you got people in here looking at folks from the conservative side who happen to be black, calling them sellouts and coons and all of these kind of negative connotations, showing them no respect as human beings just because you don't agree and side with their ideology. Who the hell are you?
I'm a person who believes strongly in what I believe in. I am also a person who takes time to study what it is that I believe in. I am a person who looks for the fact, especially politically, who looks for factual information when it comes to my politics. And so when I decide that I am not going to associate with someone because of the fact that they voted for Donald Trump, it's not because I just decided because they're on the other side, I don't want to fuck with it. No, it's because I know what the fuck it is I'm talking about. And oftentimes it's because I know that the people that I do know who voted for Donald Trump voted for him against their own fucking interests, but not only just their interests, but the interests of me and the people that I love too. And I think it's high time for people to stop acting as though opinions hold the same weight as informed opinions. Right? There is something to be said about having an informed opinion based on information, history, and knowledge, as opposed to like just going based on the vibes that you're feeling at the moment. And far too often, we know far too many people who they just going off the vibes, man. I'm just going off the vibes. Or better yet, I don't know all this other shit that you're talking about. I don't even think that this shit you're talking about is real. I'm just saying what I feel right now. It's just my opinion. It's just my opinion. Your opinion, if it is uninformed, does not hold the same weight. And unfortunately, I know personally, too many brothers, especially who are out here with uninformed opinions and think that I'm supposed to respect it because it's just their opinion. You're not informed, nigga. I don't respect that. And your uninformed opinion affects me and people I love. Fuck you. Fuck you. If you think I'm supposed to honor that. No. Fuck you. I said on social media a few weeks ago that I don't have any friends who are Trump supporters. And if you are a Trump supporter, you are not my friend. And I had people who are now former friends, I guess, who did not believe me, who are finding out that I meant every motherfucking thing I said. People whom I used to try to help. People who I really was looking out for. People with whom I spent money on, trying to help them. People with whom I tried to give job leads, trying to help them. People with whom I tried to get into the podcast game, trying to help them. Who think that I'm tripping because I stood on business when it came to what I believed about what Donald Trump represented for not only the country, but the people that I love and the people who I have respect for. I don't have to have room for these people. You do not have to leave room for these people. You don't. You can do it if you choose to. But if you choose not to, there's nothing wrong in that either. Unfortunately, people are going to have to recognize there are consequences behind the choices that we make. And if those consequences result in a loss of a relationship that you cherished because you thought that choice that you made didn't harm that relationship that you cherish, then damn it, you're going to have to find out in a very real way if you really cherished it. If you really cherished it. So yeah, I'm nobody but a person with an opinion, but also my opinion is very informed. I wouldn't get on this microphone and talk the shit that I talk if my opinion was not informed. So that's who the fuck I am, Stephen A. I'm an informed voter, nigga. I'm an informed person about these politics and shit. I'm an informed black man. And I am informed of what the fuck this election means for my community. So when you ask who the fuck are you or who the hell are you, I'm telling you who the fuck I am.
Most of my friends are liberal. Some of them are conservatives. I have no problem with any of them. All I want to hear is what your point of view is and why. And if you make sense and it's fact-based and it's not dominated by emotion trying to usurp the facts, I'm good with you. Even if I don't agree with you. Because I know your position is based on fact.
You'll be very hard pressed. And I'm gonna keep this all the way 1,000. You will be very hard pressed right now to find a Trump supporter who is basing their votes on facts, Stephen A. We know Donald Trump to be a motherfucking liar. We know Donald Trump to be a goddamn criminal. So when you know that the incoming president of the United States is a goddamn convicted felon who has been documented to have lied over 34,000 times while he was in office the first time. When you know that this dude is about to get away with the crimes he was indicted for when it came to storming the Capitol, when you know he's about to get away with trying to get the Secretary of State of the state of Georgia to flip 11,780 votes so that he wins the state of Georgia in that election in 2020. When you know that this dude had a slate of fake fucking electors trying to usurp the legitimately elected electors for the Electoral College in 2020. When you know that going in, and then you see all of the things going forward, you're not about to be able to pull the wool over a lot of people's eyes, man. And so when you see the people that you do love, the people that you did have bonds with, fall for the bullshit, and you try to tell them and they don't take heed, sometimes the result of that is, hey, man, I gotta separate myself from you because this is what you've chosen. You've chosen the bullshit over the real shit. And I am not about to feel sorry, Stephen A. You are not about to convince me that the people who won the election are the victims in this. Be they black, white, yellow, brown, or whatever. You're not about to convince me of that. Although I think you're about to try.
And for folks outside of the conservative community to look at people who are black and excoriate them just because they're conservative, who the hell are you? Where are your facts?
He asked, where are the facts? Okay. I'm going to say this again.
Cause I don't want y'all to miss that I'm about to break it down for this bitch.
Okay. He asked a very key question, and we about to break it down. Where are the facts? I'm about to give you some facts. I can remember a time. I'm sorry, not that I can remember, because I wasn't. I was not born yet. You know what I'm saying? My bad, y'all. Your man Spann wasn't born yet. I apologize. That's not what I meant to say. However, I do remember. I can remember hearing a statement made by a former president of the United States. He was president after John F. Kennedy Jr. He was Lyndon Baines Johnson, LBJ. He is responsible for giving us the Voting Rights Act of 1965. He's responsible for giving us the Civil Rights Act the Voting Rights Act of 1964. The Voting Rights Act. It was the Fair Housing Act of 1968. The Voting Rights Act of 1965, and I believe it was the Civil Rights Act of 1964. If I'm getting those 2 years mixed up, my apologies, right? But in that time, Lyndon Baines Johnson was had a record of being a virulent racist, right? Had a record of that shit, being like he just not was. I don't know what happened between the time that he was vice president, and the time he became president. But he became one of the most consequential presidents that we ever had in this nation when it came to our civil rights. And because Lyndon Baines Johnson understood the psychology of what kept white people from voting for civil rights for black people, because he was immersed in it. Lyndon Baines Johnson came from Texas. They were racist in Texas too. But one of the things that Lyndon Baines Johnson said, he said that if you can convince the lowest white man that he's better than the best colored man, he won't notice that you're picking his pocket. Hell, give him somebody to look down on and he will empty his pockets for you. Lyndon Baines Johnson said that you can convince the lowest white man that he's better than the best colored man. How many people did we see just this past summer lose their jobs because white people thought that the only reason these people of color had their jobs was because they were DEI hire. How often did we see that? This shit is coming back right 50, 60 years later. They're telling you that the high, like these highly qualified people who still had to go to aviation school, had to go to law school, had to go to any sort of like doctoral program. They're telling you that these people who went through all these different programs to become these highly accomplished people, that because that person was a person of color, that the only reason that they got their job was because they were a DEI hire. Meanwhile, you don't question it whether if it's a white man or not. We got a dude right now that Donald Trump has elected or selected to be his next Department of Defense secretary, a fellow by the name of Peter Hegseth. His qualifications are, hey, he had been in the military before, he looks the part, and he's a Fox News commentator. We're finding out that this motherfucker has like ran 2 veterans groups into the ground, and that he's an alcoholic. So we done traded in DEI for DUIs. Right? That's what we've done. We've traded in DEIs for DUIs. But y'all are telling me that I'm wrong when I look at this shit and I'm like, yo, man, so all of the highly qualified black people who have had to work twice as hard to get half as much are somehow disqualified because affirmative action, maybe? Because that's exactly what they try to do, is say that black people who have, you know, done the work, sometimes twice the work to get where they're supposed to be, somehow that is not enough. And the only reason you are there is because of DEI. Right? These are the people that I'm supposed to like feel sorry for when I see black people aligning themselves with this sort of bullshit. This is what I'm supposed to feel sorry for. Fuck that. Fuck that. I will never feel sorry for that. Here's another thing that I think Stephen A. Smith tends to forget is that, you know, one of the things that kind of helped make black people a viable voting bloc in the United States of America was the fact that we had the Voting Rights Act of 1965, right? Well, guess what? Guess what? Those Republicans hated that motherfucking legislation. As a matter of fact, we got a man by the name of Paul Weyrich, who was a part of the Reagan administration, who hated the fact that black people had the right to vote. And he said as much. Let me pull this up so you guys can watch right along with your man Spann. He said this, and I've shown you this before, but I will show you this again. Check this out. Paul Weyrich, the founding father of the conservative movement, addressed a seminal religious right gathering held in Dallas in the fall of 1980. For those of you who are not watching, and you will be listening to this later, this is the
now, many of our Christians have what I call the goo-goo syndrome. Good government. They want everybody to vote. I don't want everybody to vote.
Now, why in the fuck wouldn't you want everybody to vote? Everybody should have access to the ballot. Everyone should. You shouldn't be making it harder for people to vote. You should not be making it harder for anyone to participate in the franchise. Republicans have been trying to get black folks' votes away from them from the time that they actually gained the right to vote. And he's saying it explicitly. This is back in 1980.
Elections are not won by a majority of people. They never have been from the beginning of our country, and they are not now. As a matter of fact, our leverage in the elections, quite candidly, goes up as the voting populace goes down.
Their election populace goes. Here's the thing. The Republicans have known for decades that their policies are not popular with the vast majority of the American people. They've known this for decades. They don't want the vast majority of the American populace voting, which is why they have tried so hard to stop black people from being able to vote. And you know why we know they've been trying to start so hard to trying to stop black people from being able to vote? Let's go back to, I want to say 2008, 2009. Let me pull this up so you guys can watch right along with your man Spann as they go to the Supreme Court to gut parts of the Voting Rights Act of 1965. How about we go back to that? Let's see what they're talking about on ABC News here. Let's see what they're talking about back then.
The Supreme Court makes a huge ruling today, shaking up the future of elections across the country and right here in Arizona. Today, in a 5-4 decision, the court ruled the heart of 1965's Voter Rights Act is out of date and unconstitutional. Supporters of the decision say it's a victory for states' rights, giving them rights to set voter laws without federal approval. But
now think about this for a second. Who was talking about states' rights back in the day? Back in the 1960s, when it came to us, when we were talking about segregation, and we were talking about Jim Crow laws, and we were talking about keeping black people subjugated in the South. That was the biggest argument. States' rights. So now we're using the states' rights argument to keep black people from voting. And it's not the Democrats who are arguing for it this time. It's the motherfucking Republicans who are arguing for it this time. They want the states' rights so that they can subjugate black people again. And in all of those states where the Supreme Court decided that they didn't need pre-clearance when it came to changing voting rights laws, what did those states do? They made it harder for people to get the access to the ballot. All across the South, some of those states started closing ballot places. They started closing ballots. They started closing the ability to early vote. They started challenging people's ability to vote, whether or not you should be on the voting rolls or not. They started purging people from the polls. Right? This is what the Republican Party has been giving us for the better part of the last 15 to 20 years. Right? Despite the fact that they've already been advertising, hey, we don't want everybody to be able to vote. Right? They want to take your rights away. They've been fighting to take your rights away from you since 1965. And you want me to be in league with motherfuckers who think that it's okay to take my rights away since 1965? Fuck you, man. And anybody who's cool with that, fuck y'all. I'm not cool with that. And any nigga who aligns with that, I'm not cool with you. Fuck you. Be gone, nigga. If you think that is the right way to go. Right? But that's not it. That's not fucking it. So, we know that they try to take our rights. You know, we already seen what they've been doing when it comes to like taking our voting rights away, right? We've already seen that. But also, we watched how Republicans, conservatives have tried to sanitize Dr. Martin Luther King's message. We've watched that. We've seen that. Oftentimes, when it comes towards any sort of affirmative action, sort of legislation, white folks can't wait to say, well, you know, in the I Have a Dream speech, Dr. King said, I want my kids to be judged by the content of their character and not the color of their skin. They love pointing that shit out, but they don't necessarily understand that Dr. King, here's the thing, Dr. King was very fucking unpopular when he died, man. They hated Dr. King. He is a saint in America now because they tried to sanitize his message now. He was a saint to them now. But when Dr. King was out here talking about giving us our motherfucking check, that led to Dr. King being gunned down. So we're going to pull up Dr. King talking his real shit that a lot of these white conservatives and many of these black conservatives lean on because they think it's just about the dream. Now, understand, Dr. King was more than just a fucking dreamer. He was more than that. Let me pull this up so you guys can watch right along with your man Spann. Hold on just a second while I do this. Let me, boom, let me stop that. And let me do this. And here we go. Here's Dr. King talking about how the white working class has been undergirded by economic investment by the U.S. government, despite the fact that they would look at black people and tell black people to lift themselves up by their own fucking bootstraps. So here's Dr. King talking this shit. Let me pull this up so you guys can watch right on with your man Spann. Here's Dr. King.
At the very same time that America refused to give the Negro any land, through an act of Congress, our government was giving away millions of acres of land in the West and the Midwest, which meant that it was willing to undergird its white peasants from Europe with an economic floor. But not only did they give the land, they built land-grant colleges with government money to teach them how to farm. Not only that, they provided county agents to further their expertise in farming. Not only that, they provided low interest rates in order that they could mechanize their farms. Not only that, today, many of these people are receiving millions of dollars in federal subsidies not to farm, and they are the very people telling the black man that he ought to lift himself by his own bootstraps. And this is what we are faced with, and this is the reality. Now, when we come to Washington, in this campaign, we are coming to get our check.
This is the Dr. King that they killed right before he was able to show up in Washington for the Poor People's Campaign. This was the Dr. King that they killed. This was the Dr. King that was very much unpopular here in America, despite the fact that he was talking about uniting not just black people, but poor people, poor black people, poor brown people, poor white people, right? Very unpopular at the time that he died. But if you ask a conservative, a black conservative, a white conservative, whomever, they always revert back to that one line in the I Have a Dream speech as if that was the totality of Dr. King's vision, when it wasn't, when it fucking wasn't, right? But that's not it. That is not fucking it, man. So, what I'm going to do is we're going to also talk about Lee Atwater. So Lee Atwater was one of the architects of the Southern Strategy. And Lee Atwater was talking about how you can be racist in your legislation, but also not appear to be. Right? Well, we can push forward some racist legislation, but we can also have some plausible deniability. Lee Atwater talked about this back in 1981, doing an interview back in 1981. So I'm going to pull this up so you guys can watch right along with your man Spann. Hold on while I do this. Because, again, I've shown you guys this stuff over the years, man, over some time. If you've been listening to me for any length of time, you know this shit. But if you are not, if you're new, this might be new to you. But I need motherfuckers like Stephen A. Smith to understand that the reason why so many black people have so much animosity towards black Republicans is because we know goddamn well some of them know this shit too. And because they know this shit too, they know better. And we know that they are only doing the shit that they're doing because it pays them at the expense of the rest of us. Fuck them niggas. Bottom line, fuck them niggas. So here's what Lee Atwater had to say about being conservative and also presenting legislation that could be advantageous to whites, disadvantageous to blacks, but you don't want to say that explicitly. So let's listen to what Lee Atwater had to say about this shit real quick. The caption here, for those of you who are not watching us here live, says in 1981, the legendarily brutal campaign consultant Lee Atwater was working with the Ronald Reagan campaign, White House. He was working in Ronald Reagan's White House when he was interviewed by Alexander Lamas. Let me pull that down. Interviewed by Alexander Lamas. Lamas. In this audio made public for the first time ever, Atwater lays out how Republicans can win the vote of racist without sounding racist themselves. Okay? So imagine being a Republican in 2024, knowing that your party is courting the votes of racist against you. But they try to sound not so much racist. But this is what their aim is. This is what they're doing.
here's how I would approach that issue as a statistician or a political scientist, or no, as a psychologist, which I'm not, is how abstract you handle the race thing. In other words, you start out, and now y'all are quoting me on this. You start out in 1954 by saying nigger, nigger, nigger. By 19...
Now, for those of you who probably cannot make out what he's saying because there's a lot of feedback in this audio, but he says in 1954, you start out by saying nigger, nigger, nigger.
68, you can't say nigger, that hurts you, backfire, so you...
But by 1968, you can't say nigger, that hurts you.
Say stuff like forced busing.
So you say things like forced busing and things like that.
States' rights and all that stuff. And you're getting so abstract now, you're talking about cutting taxes
and you get so abstract now, you're talking about cutting taxes and things like that.
All of these things you're talking about are totally economic things. And
all of the things you're talking about are totally economic things.
Byproduct of them is blacks get hurt worse than whites.
And in the meantime, blacks get hurt more than whites.
And subconsciously, maybe that is part of it. I'm not saying that, but I'm saying...
And subconsciously, maybe that is part of it.
That if it is getting that abstract and that coded, that we're doing away with the racial problem one way or the other.
But if it is getting that abstract, if it is getting that abstract, we're doing away with the racial problem one way or the other.
You follow me? Because obviously sitting around saying we want to cut taxes, we want to cut this, and we want is much more abstract than even the busing thing.
Because saying that we want to cut taxes is even more abstract than saying we want to cut busing.
And a hell of a lot more abstract than nigger, nigger.
And a hell of a lot more abstract than nigger, nigger. So the Republican Party, for at least, I'm not going to even go back to the 60s, but the Republican Party, at least since 1980, have been openly courting the vote of racist against black people. They've openly been doing this. Or not even so much openly, covertly, right? Because he's talking about covertly talking about this, where you code it in a way where, you can dog whistle to, the white people and everything else. Like, we know this is going to disproportionately hurt black people more than it hurts whites. But, if you can convince the white man that he's better than the lowest white man, that he's better than the best colored man, he will empty his pockets for you, right? This is a continuation of that ideology. So when Stephen A. Smith gets on his platform to talk about, hey, black conservatives are being treated unfairly, nigga, fuck you, bro. Fuck you and fuck them. Because for those of us who understand what this means, they're not friends of ours, bro. I don't have to include this motherfucker in any social interactions. I don't have to make sure that I make them comfortable in any social interaction with me. I can let them know I don't fuck with you, fuck you, and get the fuck away from me. Because I understand that you represent something that doesn't represent me. And also what you represent means detriment and hurt to those I love and those that I do and those I do represent. Right? So that's just a little bit though, because Stephen A. had more to say. So let's go back to this Stephen A. video because he had more to say, and let's do that. Not because that wasn't where we were at, and I hate that I didn't save this part, but let's see where he was at, where we were talking. Is that right?
Grown-ups and being respectful of other people's positions and feelings and taking a moment to inhale and digest what the hell they're saying and deciphering what's true and what isn't true before we take a position.
But here's the part about that I think is very interesting, is that Stephen A. Smith thinks that there's a lot of black people who haven't done that research, who haven't done that work. Right? You think that you think that black people en masse are just deciding that they don't want to fuck with these people because They just don't want to fuck with these people. No. It's because we know a little bit. It's because we know some shit. That's why we're not fucking with them, because we know. We know coons when we see them. If anybody knows when like somebody doesn't mean good for them, black people are very motherfucking politically astute. And I think you think very low of black people if you don't think that black people are astute enough to know when somebody means harm to them. I think you think we fools, and we not.
It's important that we do that. But we haven't been doing that. And then we wonder why black people in this country are the one disenfranchised community that exists in this country. You know why? Because we don't demand that you flatter us.
Ain't that a bitch?
Let me explain my position.
Please explain.
Even further.
Please explain, because I got some shit for you.
If you go to buy a house, do you buy it without looking at it, walking through it, probing and investigating before you decide to make that investment? Do you do something like that with a car as well?
Nah, don't do that. We don't do that.
Don't you do it with clothes?
Mm-hmm.
Don't you do it with any purchase
Yes, we do.
that you get?
Yep, do all of that.
But when it comes to politics, no such thing.
Bullshit.
So in other words,
Bullshit.
the vast majority of black Americans in this country, particularly since 1964, have basically said, the right, you know what? You ain't worth a damn. We don't like you. We don't trust you. So guess what? We ain't giving you our vote.
You mean them same people that just told us that they don't even want us to be able to vote? Those people, Stephen A. You mean those same people who said that they will promote legislation that disproportionately hurts us, but they do it in a way so that like they don't necessarily have to explicitly say that it hurts us? Those folks. Is that what you want us to vote for, Stephen A? You think that we don't know? You think that black people don't know when people mean harm to us politically? So what you're saying, right? What you are saying to us right now, Stephen, is that you think that black people are politically ignorant. I'm here to tell you that the vast majority of black people are very much politically astute. So much so that when other groups vote against the coalition that we're supposed to have, black people understand that although you think what you're voting for means good for your community, be careful what you vote for, because those people don't mean you any good the same way that they don't mean us any good. Stephen A. Smith seems to have a very low opinion of the black political intelligentsia. He doesn't think we know what the fuck we're doing. He thinks that black people are politically ignorant. This is what he's promoting right now. He thinks we're politically ignorant. Well, let him keep talking on. I'm gonna let him keep talking though.
We can't come together for shit. Under most circumstances. But suddenly with politics, 85, 90%, etc. Oh, we gonna roll with the left. So what you've done is you've disenfranchised yourself. Why? Because the left know they have your vote and you're not going anywhere, and boom, you don't have to cater to African American needs.
Is that what you think? Is that what you think? Because most of the things that we got had been because we had been pressuring the left for those things. That's how we end up getting the Voting Rights Act of 1965. That's how we ended up getting the Civil Rights Act of 1964. That's how we ended up getting the motherfucking Fair Housing Act of 1968. Three of the most consequential legislation decisions in the history of this motherfucking United States. That doesn't happen with the right, because the right didn't want any of that to happen whatsoever. And they still don't, which is why the right is trying to disassemble all of the shit that was fought for in the civil rights movement, so that they can nullify the Voting Rights Act of 1965, so that they can get rid of the Fair Housing Act of 1968, so that they can get rid of the Civil Rights Act of 1964. As a matter of fact, some of the shit that black people have fought for, like our voting rights, like naturalized citizenship and everything else, that overwhelmingly benefits more than just black people. You know how many Hispanic folks are about to like find out just how bad they really needed black people, and like they relied on black people to get the sort of legislation that allowed them to come in this country and become citizens. You know how many of them are about to like really find out the folly of their ways? You know how many people of the Asian population are about to find out how much they probably screwed themselves when they turned their back on black people when it came to affirmative action and college admissions? Don't leave it to just me, right? I'm not just going to leave it to just me, right? Let me do this here. Here's what I want to do. Here's what I'm going to do, because I'm going to come back to this video. But what I want to do is I want to show you guys some stuff. And I want to show you just how disassociated from reality Stephen A. Smith is. So we're at the 5:53 mark of this video. So I'm going to show you guys some stuff. And again, Stephen A. tends to think that black people are politically uninformed, unastute, and all these other things. I'm going to show you guys some stuff, right? So one of the things I want to show you guys has to deal with the fact that let's talk about the Asian Americans, right? We get this from NBC News. Is there a video attached to this? There is not. But we get this story here from NBC News. This is from 2021. And this is from 2023, last year. Some Asian Americans say that affirmative action ruling used the group as fucking pawns.
That's the dumbest thing I've ever heard.
It's not the dumbest thing. It's a shock to a lot of the Republicans use Asian Americans to gut affirmative action in college admissions. Many of those same Asian Americans are finding themselves feeling as though they were being used as pawns in order to get rid of affirmative action. Okay. Again, we get a story from NBC News. They point out that while the two cases led by the conservative activist Ed Bloom, who is white, argue that Harvard and the University of North Carolina's policies discriminated against Asian Americans, no Asian American students came forward to testify to having experienced discrimination. The white supremacist agendas have these lawsuits use a small number of Asian Americans against affirmative action as pawns in their efforts, weaponizing the motto minority myth to divide our communities. The nonprofit Georgia-based group Asian American Advocacy Fund said in a news release, affirmative action policies have played an important role in securing Asian American access to higher education. Polling has found that a higher share of Asian Americans support affirmative action, with 53% who have heard of the policy saying that it's a good thing. Another 19% say that it is a negative thing. A separate 2022 survey from the nonprofit group APIA Vote, which polled registered Asian American voters, found that 69% favored affirmative action programs designed to help black people, women, and other minorities get better access to higher education. Some, however, expressed support for the ruling, including Representative Michelle Steele, a Republican from California. I am living my American dream because in this country, your action determines your success, not your race and your ethnicity. But Sally Chen, the education equity program manager at the nonprofit group Chinese for American Action, Affirmative Action, said that the characterization of the impact of race-conscious admissions on Asian Americans throughout the case was concerning. Addressing racial inequity is not the de facto racism. Addressing segregation and advancing diversity is not disadvantaging any group. Throwing the idea that Asian Americans are somehow being harmed by efforts to address inequity, by efforts to address segregation, is a really concerning cover for the proponents of this case have been trying to do. Representatives of Asian American Advancing Justice said that the decision is anti-black and that it perpetuates a systemic racism that has always been present in higher education. They also reflected on the disproportionate impact that it could have on underrepresented communities under the Asian American Pacific Islander umbrella. Here's the thing. What Republicans did was use a small minority of Asian Americans students to try to get them to gut affirmative action efforts when it came to college admissions. They were successful in that effort. And so as a result, Asian American admission into some of these institutions have not risen as a result of affirmative action being taken down when it comes to college admissions. But also, black admissions to some of these institutions have also fallen as a result, right? They used Asian Americans in order to gut affirmative action efforts to equity, to have some level of equity when it came to admissions in colleges, right? Now, if I am a black person, why on earth would I want to be a part or vote for people who want to lessen the amount of advantage, or better yet, the amount of opportunities that are being offered to my community? Why would I want to be a part of that? Unless, of course, doesn't necessarily affect me, but also I got a financial incentive involved in this. This is where you get your Officer Tatums. This is where you get your Paris Denards. This is where you get your Candace Owens. This is where you get those sort of people. Right? Those people have a financial incentive for themselves. Because again, think about this for a second. They've set themselves up as being above and apart from the rest of the black community. This is the operation. This is their MO. This is their modus operandi. Okay? So, the Asians felt like they were being used as pawns to get rid of affirmative action. And guess what? They were effective in using the Asians as being pawns and getting rid of affirmative action when it came towards college admissions, right? Now, here's another thing. Latinos who voted for Donald Trump in this last particular election, a lot of them tried to change and withdraw their votes for Donald Trump when they found out he was talking crazy about the Puerto Ricans. We get the story out of Newsweek. It says some Latinos considered changing their Donald Trump votes after comedian Tony Hinchcliffe's vote about Puerto Rico at a Trump rally in New York. But it was too late, says Camille Rivera, founder of Puerto Rican PAC, Puerto Rican PAC La Brega y Fuerza. Rivera's comments followed disappointing election day results for Vice President Kamala Harris among Latino voters. Although some exit polls show that Harris winning the block, she's trailing President Joe Biden's 2020 performance. Speaking with Newsweek on Tuesday evening, Rivera highlighted a delayed investment by Hispanic Democrats. For 2 or 3 years, we've been asking Democratic institutions to provide resources. By the time they responded, too many people had already voted. 10 days is a long time, and during those 10 days, I got many calls from people who wanted to change their vote but couldn't. In contrast, former President Trump is surpassing his 2020 performance among Latino voters despite a last-minute effort by Democrats to engage this crucial group after Hinchcliffe's controversial vote. Rivera observed that the Democrats' focus on Puerto Rican voters arrived too late. Now, here's what I think is very interesting, is that Donald Trump never, I would think that after the disrespect that Donald Trump showed them after Hurricane Maria, that they wouldn't even bother to vote for Donald Trump in the first fucking place. To act as though it's the fault of Kamala Harris that those folks voted for Donald Trump despite the disrespect that Donald Trump had already shown them is like crazy to me. However, many of those people within the Hispanic community were already finding themselves regretting their vote for Donald Trump when they found, for whatever reason, it took a rally to figure out, hey, this man and his campaign does not give really a fuck about our people, right? Doesn't give a fuck about us. But we got that going on. So we talked about the Asians and we talked about some Latin folks, right? But we're going to talk about the black folks too. We're going to talk about the black folks too. Because apparently Donald Trump has a lot of black Republicans feeling a little left out when he started naming people for his goddamn cabinet. And there was only one job that went to a black person. And of course, that job went to the Secretary of Urban Housing and Urban Development. I mean, come on. That is the one black job that Donald Trump thinks that black people are supposed to have. I mean, it's the same job he gave to Dr. Ben Carson, who's a goddamn neurosurgeon. He gave him housing and urban development. He has no fucking expertise in housing. He has no expertise in urban development. But goddamn it, when y'all think urban, y'all think black. Right? So we get this story here. This comes out of ABC News. And let's see. So hold on. There's a video attached. I want to play this video, and then we're going to read the article too. So let me pull this up so you guys can watch right on with your man Spann. Hold on just a second while I pull this up. Let's see what they're talking about at ABC News when it comes to Donald Trump and his cabinet taking shape. Let's do this here. Let me pause this and rewind this, and I want you guys to see what they're talking about over there. Let's get it cracking. Here we go. Check this out, y'all.
Now to the latest on President-elect Trump. His team is taking shape as he announces more of his choices for top posts in his new administration. Our senior national correspondent Terry Moran is tracking it all. Good morning, Terry.
Good morning, Rebecca. President-elect Trump continues to move at speed to fill out his cabinet for a second term, and this could be the most ideologically diverse cabinet in recent history. A team of Trump loyalists from a...
Ideologically diverse? That's an interesting way to put shit when you think that all these people are Trump fucking loyalists, bro. Like, what are you talking about right now? Oh, shit, I didn't mean to go there.
The latest on President-elect Trump. His team is taking shape as he announces more of... Terry Moran is tracking it all. Good morning, Terry.
Good morning, Rebecca. President-elect Trump continues to move at speed to fill out his cabinet for a second term, and this could be the most ideologically diverse cabinet in recent history. A team of Trump loyalists from across the political spectrum. Over the weekend, Trump making some...
Now, hold on a second. For those of you who are watching this, if you're looking at the people who he's decided to appoint to his cabinet, how many black faces do you see? I'm counting 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15 jobs. I see one goddamn black face. One black face, 15 jobs. Okay.
More big nominations for Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent. He is a hedge fund manager and former Democratic Party donor who now advocates for big cuts to the federal budget and much more oil production in the U.S. And for the powerful position of director of the OMB, the Office of Management and Budget, Russell Vought. He held that post in the first Trump administration, and he is also the lead author, one of the lead authors of Project 2025. That's that controversial.
Wait. He's a what? He's the motherfucking what? He's a lead author on Project 2020. I thought y'all told me that Project 2025 was some bullshit. I thought y'all told me Donald Trump ain't had shit to do with Project 2025. I thought Donald Trump told y'all he don't know what the fuck Project 2025 is, and there's some kooky shit into Project 2025, but he's gonna appoint Project 2025 authors to his fucking cabinet? Get the fuck out of here. Get the fuck out of here. Nah, that can't be right. That can't be right, man.
Blueprint for a second Trump administration that Trump distanced himself from during the campaign, but has now put one of the top architects at the very center of power. And for Labor Secretary, Republican Congresswoman from Oregon, Lori Chavez DeRaymer, she is, surprisingly for Republican, very pro-union. Rebecca?
Yeah, you said it, Terry, very ideologically diverse. And there are also...
And I think it's interesting how they're trying to, I think it's very interesting how they try to, they say it's ideologically diverse. It is not. Most of the people with whom Donald Trump is appointed to his cabinet are very right-wing, are very, very, very fucking rich, and also have bought into being loyalists to Donald Trump. Not loyalists to the country, not loyalists to the Constitution, loyalists to Donald Trump. Right? So I think that's interesting.
So more controversial nominees in the public health posts.
No question about it, Rebecca. There's a real theme here. Trump has named former Florida Congressman Dave Weldon, who is a real vaccine skeptic, to run the CDC, the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. Marty McCary, a surgeon who is a harsh critic of the vaccine mandates during the COVID pandemic. He has been named to run the FDA, the Food and
So
the latest on President-elect Trump. Her now to the
okay. So the two people that he's appointed to the health organizations, the FDA and the CDC, okay, those two folks, it's like when you appoint vaccine skeptics and people, a doctor who's against a vaccine mandate, that's like the equivalent of, you ever watch have you ever watched a toothpaste commercial and they say 9 out of 10 dentists recommend, brushing and flossing every day, right? I'm sure you guys have seen this. There's always that one fucking dentist who's like, nah, nigga, you ain't got to brush your teeth every day. Nah, nigga, you ain't got to floss your teeth every day. I mean, you might want to do it every other day, you know what I'm saying? It's okay. That is the equivalent of who Donald Trump has appointed to the health cabinet positions. Now, mind you, Donald Trump will like you. He's kind of stepped away from the fact that his administration, the one good thing that his administration did was come up with the COVID vaccine. Donald Trump would like you guys to forget that it was his administration who came out with the COVID vaccine at record speed. He had Project Warp Speed. He would like y'all to forget that shit. Right? He would like y'all to forget that shit. But also, the reason why we were even talking about this is because Black Republicans are feeling left out by the fact that he only appointed one person in his cabinet that was Black. You don't have John James in that cabinet. You don't have Tim Scott in that cabinet. You don't have Byron Donalds in that cabinet or any of the other 5, Black Republicans in that cabinet. You don't have them niggas there. Like, none of them are there. So we get this story here. Like I said, we still are on go.com. It says, as President-elect Donald Trump fills out his cabinet and chooses his closest advisors ahead of Inauguration Day, many African-American leaders are asking why more Black people haven't been appointed to key positions. ABC News spoke to more than a half dozen longtime and new African-American conservatives and Republicans within Trump world in and outside of Washington. Last month, the president-elect appointed Scott Turner, who was executive director of the White House Opportunity and Revitalization Council during Trump's first term, to serve as secretary of the Department of Housing and Urban Development. One area of frustration for many Black Republicans was speculation that if Trump did nominate an African-American to his administration, it would be at HUD, the department that has had the most Black secretary appointments of any. One Black Southern Republican told ABC News, "Why is every Black person given HUD?" adding that it was the literal Black job of the administration. ABC News reached out to Trump's administration team transition team for a comment on his selections, but did not get a reply. 6 African Americans have served as HUD secretaries, including Robert Weaver the first. His appointment was in 1966 by President LBJ, who made him the first African American appointed to a cabinet level position. The first African-American woman to serve in the presidential cabinet was Patricia Roberts Harris, who was the first African-American Health and Human Services Director and later HUD Secretary. She served under President Jimmy Carter. Former HUD Secretary Samuel Pierce was the only Black cabinet official in the Ronald Reagan administration. Dr. Ben Carson at HUD was Trump's sole Black cabinet member in his first term. In mid-November, Carson posted that he was excited to speak with President Trump about how I will continue to advance the America First agenda, and I'm meeting with him in the near future. However, contrary to reports, I will not be serving as Surgeon General, he said. Now, why wouldn't of all the jobs that like Ben Carson was qualified for, it probably would be Surgeon General. Probably would be that. Not housing and urban development. The man has no fucking experience in that. The departments of Treasury and Interior remain the only departments that have never had a Black secretary. Another key position Black conservatives believe needs to be filled by an African American is assistant to the president, a senior level role within the White House. Trump previously appointed Omarosa Manigault-Newman, a contestant on The Apprentice TV series, as a sole black assistant to the president. I do think if you're really talking about black influence inside the White House, Trump wants his only legacy of having the only AP for 2 terms to be Omarosa. So essentially, black Republicans are feeling, damn, all of the cooning we did, all of the shit, man, we was out here showing up. Like Tim Scott was out here like, man, I just love you. I just love you, man. He did all of that shit. Fucking Byron Donalds is out here talking about the virtues of Jim Crow and shit. The virtues of Jim Crow didn't get nan cabinet position. So when you have Stephen A. Smith out here admonishing black folks on how we respond to black Republicans, nigga, fuck you. He don't respect black Republicans. Why in the fuck should we when we know these niggas don't represent the vast majority of us? The fuck are you talking about? Let's keep it all the way real. But also, well, you know what? Before we get to that, I'm going to let Stephen A. talk some more. I'm going to let him talk some more. Because he feels as though black Republicans are being treated unfairly. So we're going to go right back to 5:53 in this video. Let me get back to that. 5:53. That's where we left him off. And, okay. I'm going to pull this up so you guys can, again, watch right along with your man Spann. And let's see what the fuck else Stephen A. Smith is talking about with this bullshit.
And on the right, you're like, we ain't getting their vote anyway. So let's pay attention to the constituent that's going to put us in office. Either way you slice it, this one gives you little representation because they're taking you for granted. This one gives you little representation and no representation because they know they don't have your support anyway. And why are the other communities successful? Because I don't give a damn whether it's Cuban, it's Dominican, it's Venezuelan, it's Guatemalan, it's Puerto Rican, it's Mexican. I don't care what it is. You're Asian. You're the Jewish community. An abundance of white folks in the United States of America. Somehow, some way, everybody successfully goes about the business of making sure they tell you, show us you're worthy of our vote before we give it to you.
Are you talking about the steel workers, the white steel workers who just found out that Donald Trump was gutting a Nippon Steel, who is a Japanese company who wanted to buy U.S. steel here in America? Are you talking about those white steel workers who just found out that Donald Trump wants to put the kibosh on that so that they can keep their jobs? Talking about those white guys, those white steel workers? Are you talking about those Asian folks who felt like they were being used as pawns to get rid of affirmative action in college admissions? You're talking about those Asians? Are you talking about those Latin voters, those Hispanic voters, those Latinx voters who are finding out that maybe, just maybe, man, shit, my uncle might be getting deported because he isn't here legally. He is an undocumented immigrant. And I might have just voted to send my uncle back to some bullshit. Talking about those folks? Is that what we're talking about, Stephen A? I'm going to need you to be a little bit more informed on the shit that you're talking about if you're going to be on this politics tip, bruh. I really do. Because right now, you don't know what the fuck it is you're talking about. And here's the thing. Black people, more than anything, understand where we stand politically in America. You think that black people have an allegiance to the Democratic Party simply because we vote Democrat? That wasn't always the case. Black people understand that, like, yo, at least we can negotiate with the Democrats. We can force them and move them in a certain way. The Republicans haven't shown themselves to be interested in that at all. As a matter of fact, they've shown themselves to be very much antagonistic towards us as a community. When you find yourself where the KKK aligns themselves with you, when you find yourself where Identity Europa find themselves in league with you, When you find yourself where Nazi organizations find themselves in league with you, I know that you don't fuck with me. So why in the fuck would I even bother fucking with y'all? You are not in league with what I got going on. And the only people that you do find yourself in league with in my community are those who find themselves and see themselves above and apart from our community. And you want to admonish black people for recognizing that. That's your motherfucking message. You got to be the stupidest nigga on earth if you think that black people don't understand politics and what coalitions mean and how those coalitions can affect us politically. There's a reason why black people feel a sense of betrayal when it comes to the Arab community, especially here in Michigan, when you find out that they voted in large number for Donald Trump. Considering what Donald Trump and how Donald Trump, what Donald Trump plans to do to their community. You have to understand the level of betrayal that the black community feels when some of those folks in the Latino community vote for Donald Trump, considering the fact that Donald Trump really means to break up their families because he doesn't believe that they belong here. Despite that, some of those folks think that they're going to be exempt from whatever it is that Donald Trump has planned for them. Black folks are very much aware of black folks are so much aware of what white America means and what white America wants and how white America moves. And the reason why black people are so much attuned to that is because we do that because we need to understand this for our own survival. We got to understand white folks more than white folks understand white folks for our own fucking survival. Unfortunately, some of these other ethnic groups don't necessarily understand that. And oftentimes, when it comes to the proximity to whiteness, you think that you are better than us. Some of them think that they're better than black people because they can lean into their proximity to whiteness. Because we understand that white folks voted for whiteness. White folks voted for whiteness. Some of these other votes voted for their proximity to it. But they're going to find out in a very real and harsh way that their proximity to whiteness doesn't necessarily mean they are a part of whiteness. And they're going to find out the hard way. This is where the fuck around and find out portion comes when Donald Trump finally does get inaugurated.
And as a result, you have to cater to them. We don't do that. We don't do that. And that's where we made a mistake. And even though black conservatives may not do that to the degree that we like, in the end, what they're doing is they're bucking the system. They're saying we're not going to just buy what you're selling.
They don't have... What black conservatives more often than not are doing are trying to separate themselves from the community from which they came. That is it. That is all, Stephen A. They are not doing anything revolutionary by no means of the imagination. They think they are exempt from whatever happens to the black community when conservatives, white conservatives more often than not, are planning for the black community. They think they are above and apart. So you will not make a black conservative a martyr to me. You're not going to be able to do that. For anybody who's been paying attention politically, you will never be able to pull the wool over these folks' eyes, especially mine. But the idea that after Republicans have won the Supreme Court, the presidency, the Senate, and the House of Representatives, that somehow black conservatives are victims, despite the fact that Donald Trump only named one black person as a part of his cabinet, despite the fact that he had so many black conservatives out here stumping for him, totally debasing themselves from the communities of which they came. Like, they did that to themselves, man. The black community didn't do that to them. They made a conscious choice and decision to do that themselves. The black community, you will never be able to shame the black community for ostracizing people who do not mean good for our community, whether they came from the community or not. They are not victims. They are right now the victors. As a matter of fact, many of them will tell you, I don't want that victim mentality. Remember, they was all talking about that shit. You won't be able to make me a victim or none of that. So why are they victims now after they done won every fucking thing, bro? Why are you trying to sell me on the idea that black conservatives are victims? Nigga, they are not. They are co-conspirators against the community. Fuck them. And fuck you if you think I'm supposed to buy that. And for as much or as big as an audience as Stephen A. Smith commands, this is why I'm doing what I'm doing. Because, again, as we said last week, our social media influencers don't even bother to vet the information that they give us. Stephen A. Smith, when it comes to politics, isn't vetting a goddamn thing. He's talking off of pure emotion right now, despite the fact that he thinks that black people are dealing off of pure emotion. Many of us are very much politically astute to know the difference between a black conservative and a black or a black liberal and what they mean to the community. Many of us understand the grift that comes with being a black conservative and how you have to sacrifice a piece of yourself in order to make white people feel comfortable being around you. Many of those black conservatives will sacrifice themselves and be the black face of white supremacy in order to make white people feel comfortable saying some bullshit around people of color. And so long as they are getting paid a handsome ransom, they are okay with it. Some of us are not okay with that. Stephen A. Smith is in a very comfortable position. He's going to be okay no matter what. But what does that mean for the rest of us? So respectfully, I would tell someone like a Stephen A. to shut the fuck up. Shut the fuck up.
Shut up. Shut the fuck up.
Damn.
Enough. Boy, I've been sick to my fucking stomach watching you imbeciles type things. Stop typing. You niggas are stupid.
That's how I feel about it. I'm going to let them finish it out, though.
The other side might have more of what we want. And some of them did that in this election with Trump. And now the Democrats have to go back to the drawing board and figure out how can you appeal to more African Americans and more folks in the Hispanic community and beyond to regain the luster that you thought you had, but you evidently lost. In other words, ladies and gentlemen, even when things look bad, there's light at the end of the rainbow. You know what that light is? Believe it or not, Donald Trump winning the election because it forced everybody to stand up and pay attention and recognize that you no longer get to engage in hate mongering and fear mongering to win an election.
Is that right? Is that the message that we're supposed to get? Because I could have swore, man, like Donald Trump put out a whole bunch of ads about transgender people being like in the bathrooms and shit. And he had Charlamagne the God and DJ Envy in that ad. despite the fact that the vast majority of the American people never encounter a transgender person in the bathroom the entirety of their fucking lives. Is that what you believe? Right? Are we to believe that, like, Donald Trump doesn't fearmonger when he said that Haitians were eating the dogs and the cats of people in Springfield, Ohio? Are we to believe that? Because that sounded a hell of a lot like fucking fear-mongering to me about people who look different than you, about people who live differently than you. Donald Trump was out here saying a whole bunch of foul, false-ass shit, and you coming at Democrats and saying, you don't get the fear-mongering, all this other. Nigga, that's the entirety of fucking Donald Trump's presidency. That's the entirety of his whole campaign. Fear-mongering. So again, respectfully, Stephen A., fuck you. You don't know what you're talking about. And if you do know what you're talking about, you're being very fucking disingenuous. Fuck you. Fuck you. Fuck you. You bitch ass nigga. Fuck you. And that's how we gonna leave this night's show. But before I get out of here, I gotta remind you guys how to get in touch with us over here at the Mr. Spann Official Podcast and let your voice be heard, man. Go ahead and hit up that hotline at area code 313-288-0485. There's area code 313-288-0485. Leave us those voicemail messages. Of course, those messages will get played here and responded to here live on the show. You can also hit us up on hit me up on Threads and Instagram. My name on both of those platforms is Mr._Spann. Follow you, man, Spann. Chop it up with your man, Spann, throughout the week. Also, I am on Blue Sky, so follow me on Blue Sky at MrSpann.bsky.social. Follow me there, chop it up with your man Spann throughout the week there as well. Follow me. Hit us up on our Spotify and iTunes. Hit us up with a 5-star review. Those 5-star reviews are the ones that get right here live on the show. We really appreciate everybody who does that. Doesn't cost you a dime, just a couple minutes of your time to let everybody know why you're rocking with us over here at the Mr. Spann Official Podcast and the Spann Report Podcast Network in its entirety, man. I am about to get on up out of here. I will talk to you guys again soon. But until next time, fam, where is my cursor? Because Jesus Christ, what the hell just happened here? But until next time, fam, peace. Okay, shit just froze.